Call to order this Board of Directors meeting for the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, February 20th, 2024. Roll call.
Blair. Here. Smiley.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
At this time, I would like to ask that everyone please stand with me, and Director Hunt will lead us in prayer. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this beautiful weather you provided for us today and the rest of the week, and just for the opportunity to enjoy the weather, enjoy your creation, and all that Siloam has to offer for just outdoors. Here tonight, on behalf of the city and the citizens, I pray that you will lead our discussion. I pray that you will give us understanding hearts and a willingness just to listen to each other and make the best decisions on behalf of.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to ask that anyone that has an electronic device, please silence that at this time so we don't have interruptions during the meeting. And thank you very much for doing that. So next on our agenda is time for public input. And before I open the floor and we get into that, we have some special guests here with us tonight. We have Girl Scout Troop 5026, and they would like to come to the front here and introduce themselves to the board and tell you about a service project that they have, and they are doing this as part of earning an award, and they'll tell you about that.
Sorry, I have a cough.
You're fine.
I don't normally sound like this. Hi, we are Troop 5026. I'm Elle. Our troop is working towards our Bronze and Silver Award. The Bronze and Silver Awards are two of the highest awards you can earn as a Girl Scout. To get this award, we need to identify an issue in our community and find a way to improve it.
Hi, I'm Emery. Our idea is the Lovely Letter Library. It is a way to cheer people up and give people a lift in life. The Lovely Letter Library can change or help lives if you let us. We can change our community, and that will encourage us to change the world.
Hi, I'm Emily, and when we started talking about identifying an issue, it became apparent that we all knew someone in our lives who was either grieving from a loss, experiencing sadness, or coping with depression. To further identify the problem, we found these nationwide stats. The National Institute of Mental Health estimates that 21 million U.S. adults had at least one major depressive episode in 2021. The New York Post stated that the average American has 2 months of bad days per year. And according to CycleWellnessCenter.com, encouraging words can give people confidence, and it gives them reasons to focus on positive attempts and ignore the negative ones.
Hi, I'm Grace. While we know the Lovely Letters box will not replace professional help for mental illness or depression, it is our hope that it will lift spirits and maybe turn someone's bad day into a good one. It has been proven that reading words of encouragement can change someone's day around, and in some cases, it has changed lives.
Hi, I'm Maya, and I want to give you a little more information about this project. The Lovely Letters Library is a community support system. It's a wooden give-or-take booth, like a free pantry, but it's filled with uplifting messages. Supplies will be purchased using funds from our cookie sales, and we have plans to ask the high school shop class or other volunteer carpenters to help us construct it.
Hello, my name is Emma. Our troop will create encouraging cards and notes and beautiful artwork to fill up the library. And each week, one scout from our troop will be in charge of checking the library and making sure it's stocked. Then, when someone from the community is having a bad day or feeling down, like a lot of people do, they can simply open the door and grab an encouraging message. We hope eventually community members will join us in filling up the library with hope-filled thoughts, and together we can encourage each other, as community is made for. As for the location of the library, we are open to suggestions, but our thought is to put the library in a spot that is regularly visited by community members, maybe near the free pantry.
Hi, I'm Macy. We hope you take our project into consideration. In order to move forward with the Bronze and Silver Awards, we need to have community support.
Hi,
You can pull it down.
hi, I'm Callie.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Callie. In order to achieve our Bronze and Silver Award, we will need to make a lasting effect on our community. And we feel the Lovely Letters Library will do this. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, girls. Thank you very much. And Gina, do you want to talk a little bit about that, or do you have anything you'd like to say?
I think they said it all. It's the Silver Award. It's the second highest award a Girl Scout can get. And they came up with this idea on their own, and they researched it, and really passionate about uplifting people's spirits in the community.
And didn't they say where they are going to place this? I may have missed that whenever they were.
No, we haven't decided that yet. So
Okay.
the first step is to identify an issue, come up with a solution, and then gain community support. And so if we could just we support this as an overall initiative, we would work with planning and zoning or churches or somewhere to find a nice place for it to live. But for now, we just need it to be in the notes in the meeting that we got community support. So we came to the highest people to get our community support.
Thank you very much. And I would dare say that each one of these directors would fully support, and I see all of them shaking their heads, yes, that you do have the community support, and this board will be behind you 100%. So, yes, thank you, girls, and good luck on your project.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you each better get that badge or we're gonna.
All right, so now we will move into our regular public input time. If anyone is here that would like to address the board on an item that is not on our regular agenda, is there anyone here? Mr. Kreiner.
Tough act to follow.
It is.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. I'm Jeremy Kreiner. I live at 14570 North Hyco Street here in Siloam Springs. Normally I'm here as the fire chief, but today I'm here as a candidate for state representative in District 17. District 17 encompasses Siloam Springs, Gentry, Springtown, and the area surrounding that. Today is the first day of early voting, and so I went and voted this morning. I got an awesome little sticker. And so I would just encourage everyone to go out and vote. You have the opportunity to do that at the assessor's office down on South Lincoln Street this week and next week. And then next week you have the opportunity down at the Siloam Springs Community Building. Beginning next Monday, you can early vote as well. Election Day is March the 5th, so 2 weeks from today. And I just have had the opportunity in my career to serve the public for over almost 23 years now as a firefighter. And I love people. I love the community. I love serving folks. I love what I do here in this community, and I would be honored to serve as your representative down in Little Rock and continue that service. With that, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Is there anyone else? If not, is there anyone here that would like to address the board on any item that is on our consent agenda? If there is not, we will move on to the next item, which are our presentation And this will be from our fire department CAS program, looks like. And I believe John Vanetta, one of our deputy chiefs, is going to do the presentation.
Yes, ma'am. John Vanetta, Deputy Chief of the Fire Department. It's my honor to be here tonight to address the board and city administrator. For our CAS reaccreditation, we were recently reaccredited by CAS, which is the Commission on Ambulance Service. And it's the third time we've been accredited. We were originally accredited in 2017. It's a very comprehensive process that looks at our patient care, our organization as a whole, how we administer everything, just about everything to do with the EMS portion of our fire department. And these standards go way beyond what you would normally expect from either the state or the local regional protocols. So we were originally accredited in 2017, reaccredited in 2020. Now 2023, December, we got reaccredited for 3 more years. And to let you know, there are only 3 other fire departments in the state of Arkansas that provide EMS that are accredited, and less than 30 in the whole country. So it really is a major accomplishment for us, and also for the size of our organization with about 65 people. Most of the departments you see have 150, 200, 300 people, so it really speaks to the amount of involvement of our members at every level to go out there and not only provide great patient care to the public, but also administratively and organizationally come back and help us do all the work that needs to be done to do these accreditations. So one of the things that came up during our accreditation site visit, we had a gentleman who was a doctor affiliated with the Harvard Medical School, who told us that our patient care reports were some of the best he'd ever seen. And because of that, he was very confident that our patient care was very good, because usually the care is good and the reporting's bad. So he said, if you're doing that good on your reporting, you've got a really good department. You guys are really paying good attention to what you're supposed to be doing. And we're very proud of that. The members work very hard. We've got some really dedicated and expert firefighter, paramedics, and EMTs in our department, pretty much all of them. And they treat everybody in the community like they're their family. And very proud of them. And just have the honor and pleasure of being up here to be able to congratulate them and the city for having such dedicated employees to put all that work for it. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything you have. Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, John. I know a few years ago we had another ambulatory service in town, and they shut down, what have you, and we had some movement going on at that time. Can you talk us through that transition to where we are today and how everything is working?
So there was an ambulance service that was right here in town, Pulse EMS, that was downtown. They mostly did patient transfers and stuff around town. Well, they closed. And then we had, the county came in and had Northwest EMS come in and do the county area and contracted that out, which took over a large portion of the county area that we used to cover, we were contracted to cover. Well, Northwest EMS came in, provided that for a couple of years, then they closed down, and now Pafford EMS is doing that, and they're our kind of backup for whenever we need extra help. Seems to be working relatively well. We cover our area, they cover theirs. Whenever we need help, they come in as soon as they can, but their closest ambulance is in Gentry. So we usually end up waiting a little while, but that's why we have paramedics on the fire trucks too. So we can send a fire truck over, take care of our patients, take care of our citizens, and make sure that we're doing the best for them that we can until that ambulance arrives. And we're getting close to getting another ambulance in service. So when that happens, we should be able to do even better than we are now. So.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
Anyone else?
Thank you, John. We appreciate it, and we appreciate the job that you all do for our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the support from the board.
Absolutely. So with that, we will now move to our consent agenda. Item A, regular meeting minutes, February 6th, 2024. Item B, Resolution 17-24, setting hearing date for easement vacation, 21,000 block of Davidson Road. Excuse me. That is all of our consent agenda. Directors, is there any item that you would like to have removed for further consideration, separate from the consent agenda? If there is not, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Smiley.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair. Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is our regularly scheduled items. First thing is contracts and approvals. To approve a purchase for the electric department, 20 MVA substation transformers, Sanel Electric, $1,322,618.68. Phil?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Phil Stokes, Electric Director. We've been watching the growth on the east part of our city, especially in the northeast, and so we looked like we needed another transformer to handle the growth that's coming into us. And so we went out and bid for a transformer, and we received like 9 bids, I believe it was, and the one that had the one we really found, this one of the close to the cheapest, and it was one that has performed well for us before, is Sanel, and it's made in South Korea. And a lot of these bids, they'll take exceptions, or they'll escalators and things like this, but Sanel, with the last one we bought from them, they didn't do that. What they promised, they performed, and we had questions, they answered them, and so we was really pleased with what the product, and it's been in service almost a year now. And so we would like to ask the board to approve the purchase of this transformer. It's going to take about a year to get in, and so this should just help us meet our growth that's coming. And we have like 18 subdivisions and different stages of planning going on right now, and so we're trying to be proactive and stay ahead of what the growth that's out there. So available for any questions.
Thank you, Phil. Directors?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Wendy.
So that bid is good for 90 days, and then after 90 days, you just have to make a commitment, but we don't spend any monies until 2025? Is that what I'm reading?
Well, that was good for 90 days after it was submitted, and so if tonight you approve it, then we'll stay within that 90 days.
We don't write a check until 2025?
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, we're just committing to, and they're agreeing on that cost? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that has any comments or questions on this contract approval? If there is not, directors, do I have a motion to approve the purchase for the electric department for the $1,322,618.68?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Phil. And before we go into the ordinances, if I could, directors, after our pre-agenda meeting, I know at that meeting we talked about the short-term rental, and I would like to ask if I could have a motion and a second from this board to place that on tonight's agenda for a vote and some discussion. So first thing I need is a motion to place it on the agenda because it is not on tonight's agenda. So do I have a motion to do that?
To place what on the agenda?
To place the discussion of the short-term rental.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Madam Mayor, when you
Yes.
say discussion, you're not looking for a vote, you're looking for discussion only?
Well, once we've done this, then we are going to talk about what has happened in our planning department and what they are asking for us, for you all to approve for them to do. But we can't have that discussion until we get it on our agenda because it's not an agenda item, okay?
So,
We're
Madam
all-
Mayor, will we be doing all of that?
We're going to do
tonight?
all of that right now. We're going to put it on, and then I'm going to ask you for another motion.
Yeah, we're only voting to put it
Just
on
to
the
put it on the
agenda as a
agenda.
discussion.
That's all we're doing right now.
Do we
So,
want?
I
we
have a
want that?
motion and a second, is that right?
Yep.
To place it? No?
Got a
I'll
second?
do a second then.
Oh, I seconded it.
Oh.
Or I made the motion. Yes, I seconded it.
So roll call.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. And so the purpose of that, so at this point, I think that we're going to look for a motion to perhaps remand this back to the Planning Commission instead of having a workshop. Alan, would you like to kind of?
That's correct, Mayor. Just being the only way that we can go forward, because just a few months ago, there was, motions were made and the board's, their pleasure was to put this and take it to a workshop. I think we've worked through that. I don't think we need a workshop, but that has to come through a motion from you all to pull it from the workshop. We can start working on it and bring you a plan going forward. You can always go back to that, but we've made changes that I think that will give you good information moving forward.
Do we have the original motion here tonight?
Renee, do you have that in your records at all?
Do you know when you made it?
I don't.
So do we just need to eliminate a need?
What we need, and we've checked with legal counsel, what we need is a motion from the board to remand this particular item, the short-term rental discussion, or the ordinance that they're looking at revising, remand that back to Planning Commission because there have been some major changes, okay? Because of your comments, some major changes will be happening, and that really needs to be back before the Planning Commission, and then for them to send it on to you after they have reviewed it. And that's what we're asking for, is for a motion that it can be remanded back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review, then to be sent back to you after their comments and their review.
Okay, so I make a motion of what you said.
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
It's a little difficult for us to be, and I'm fully in support of what you're talking about, but for us to not have the original motion in front of us that's already been made and it's in the resolution or ordinance, by not having that in front of us and actually referencing it and saying we are pulling this back, it's a little difficult to simply be making a motion that we're changing what we already voted on if there's not an actual something that we're referencing.
I don't know that we're actually referencing back to that motion.
Well, then if we do a motion tonight, it's going to be counter to what we've already passed. So we, in a sense, need to end that previous one by overruling it with this motion. But if we don't even have that to reference, maybe we can just put it as a blank in the motion, but otherwise the other one is still going to be on the books.
Okay, so Jay, if I might ask you, Renee says that she's remembering that it was actually an item on our agenda, and we ask that it be tabled until we had a workshop so that the board could have more information. So if that was the motion, if the motion was to table until we could have the workshop, at this point in time, what do we need to reference back to that? And I believe we may be talking about the January 6th meeting.
It was just a table. We just say that we're overruling that table.
Yeah, and I believe, whenever she said that, I believe that is correct, because you all did not want to move forward with that until you had an opportunity to get more information, and you asked for it to be tabled. And so therefore, at this point in time, is that what you're remembering, Alan?
It is.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do after pre-agenda, we had some very good discussion. We're trying to get this back to the board, but it's kind of hard when it was tabled in workshops, so we're trying to get it where I can bring it back before you.
We just need a motion that actually says we are
Remand.
overruling the previous table and moving forward with,
Well, I think what we need a motion is to override the table and to ask for it to be remanded back to planning and zoning for their discussion and input, and then it will come back to the board. Does
Renee,
that sound?
what she said.
Yes.
What she said.
Renee's got it.
You worded it perfectly, Judy,
So-
Madam Mayor.
So if that's the case, do I have a motion?
To override the table and remand the short-term rentals ordinance back to planning.
So moved.
Carol made the motion.
We got a motion, and Lisa has a second. Roll call.
Whistler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes. Motion is approved. Thank you all very much. So that will go back to planning and zoning. Thank you, Ellen. All right, now we will move on to our ordinances that is on our agenda. Ordinance 24-03, first reading, vacation of an alleyway, 809 East University Street. And Kevin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kevin Moore, City Engineer. Staff received a petition to vacate right-of-way on University Street back in January. Staff supported that original request with the comment that the owner to the north needed to also sign that petition. Instead, what was proposed, the proposal was updated and could no longer be supported by
Kevin,
staff.
can you pull up your mic?
Changes. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Do I need to start over, or?
We're checking the mic.
A petition to vacate right-of-way on University Street. We supported the original request with the comment that the signature of the owner to the north was also needed on that petition. Instead, the proposal was updated, and staff no longer supported that proposal due to the changes. Essentially, just to kind of sum up our standpoint on that is the proposal is legal. It meets the letter of the law. But it's not advisable. Staff does not recommend approval because of the isolated remnant of right-of-way at the very north end of that alleyway. And staff is available for any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam
Betsy?
Mayor, I'm confused. So it is legal to do it?
Yes, I'd like to defer to our counsel on that, but essentially, I think it kind of boiled down to it met the letter of the law, but not the intent.
Madam Mayor, I think there's a question about the definition of an abutting property owner. And our concern, staff's concern is to leave a small portion of the public right-of-way as an island at the end of what was otherwise a vacated alley. And then there's a question under state law as to whether the party at the dead end of the alley is required to join the petition as an abutting property owner or not. When the request was made for to obtain that signature, the applicant instead modified the plat to leave a small island of public land at the end of what would otherwise be a vacated alley, and staff does not recommend that approval.
Does that answer your question, Betsy, or do you have another question to go with that? Does that clarify anything for you?
I guess it does, because I've heard it's legal, I've heard it's not legal. But it sounds like technically it's legal.
I'm not going to tell you it's not legal. I think there's a question as to who is considered an abutting property owner for purposes of the petition to vacate. Because as a result of vacating, the land reverts to the owners alongside of the street, but would not revert to the owner at the end of the street.
I do have a question. So if it doesn't go to the people on the end, and which I know, I know, but the other part, if it doesn't go to the end, why does the state require it to be signed off by the property owners that it doesn't really affect them?
There's some case law that talks about all abutting owners are required to sign the petition. The case that I presented to the board earlier, the Roberts versus Pace case, I think the applicant has presented some material to the board as part of the applicant's package that the lot in question was actually alongside the alley and was not at the very end of the alley. So I still have a question as to who is considered an abutting landowner for purposes of the statute to vacate. There is some other case law in Arkansas that says the party at the end of a street or alley does have certain property rights if that street or alley is used to access his or her property. So
Is it used, it's not used for that because there's a house on it?
in this case, it's not, the alley has not been used for many years. That house has apparently been there for a long time.
And there's nothing in our historical overlay area that qualifies for circumstances like this that we...
Staff was unable to find any examples of a right-of-way having been vacated in this manner where it leaves a remnant at the other end.
Because I know in the historical overlay area, there's a lot of quirky things in that area because we own property in that area. And anytime there's discussion, it's kind of, there's always these, it's like, oh, yeah, that back then they did it this way and back then they did it that way. And so we had an easement, an alley easement through a house. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, that alley is through the house. Staff was unable to determine when exactly that house was built. It's at least 40 years old, prior to regular building permit processes or records that we have.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mindy.
It seems that that house being in the alleyway, in the middle of the right-of-way, or in the middle of the alley, which makes it difficult to be a right-of-way or to get from one, that just sort of is the thing that makes this more complicated.
Yes, and so the state law requires that an alley or a right-of-way that you wish to vacate not have been used within the last 5 years, and we're well beyond that from any records that we have.
So we're saying it's not being used.
It
as a
has not
right-of-way.
been used by the public from our records. And I think it's a very good candidate to be vacated. It's simply that length instead of leaving the portion at that north end.
Which requires a signature of which we think requires a signature of the abutting owner, but we're not ready to say it's not legal if we don't. But I know I'm putting you on the spot. We're not ready to say it's not legal if we don't have the signature, but it seems.
Listen, there's enough question there. I'm certainly willing to work with staff and the applicant to try to get that resolved. And it may be that we can get that resolved without the signature of the owner at the end of that alley. And the city is certainly not trying to create any sort of a hardship for the applicant, but staff was certainly not supportive of when the amended application came back that left the little proposed abandoned strip of alley up there at the north end of that alley.
And that proposed abandoned strip was sort of a workaround to what we thought was needed in terms of the signature.
That's
If,
my
without the workaround, we're back to the signature, but still not knowing for sure if that signature is needed. Is that,
I'm not going to disagree with that.
okay?
In some cases, and a budding property owner has brought suit to complain about what would then be a lack of access.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen in this case, because there's been a house built over that alley for many years, and the alley has certainly not been used for many, many years.
Well, I appreciate your work on trying to find something that, that fits all this. I know the applicant's representative has spent a lot of time working on this. I know you all have spent a lot of time, and I'm hoping we can all come together and come up with a solution that works for everybody. Yes, Lisa.
Was you done?
I'm done, yes.
Okay, sorry. So, because this is such a unique situation, and I know we don't want to set a standard for in the future, can we not set, I don't even know what I'm asking for, but can we not, move forward with something, because it does have a house, and they can't drive through the house. You can't knock down the house to build the road. Yeah. But, so can we not find a solution that doesn't require extending time, waiting for the other end? And literally, we're talking 6 inches. Are we not talking six inches?
That's correct.
By 20 feet.
Yeah.
10 square feet.
And so it doesn't change the ownership. It doesn't change, or I guess it does, except for that 6 inches. And the 6 inches would be owned by,
It would remain as public right-of-way. But there would be no access to it.
and what's the, what is it for the margin of error for surveying? Seriously, I don't mean that to be mean, but what is the margin of error?
It's hundredths of a foot.
Hundredths of a foot.
Yeah. So fractions of an inch, typically, depending on what the survey is used for.
I mean, because there are errors in surveying. I mean, it's not an exact science, I don't think. Sorry, I'm not putting down but my point is that we're talking 6 inches, and if there's an error, either way, it just seems like in this circumstance, because the house was there, it's in the historical overlay, that we could find a solution that works for everybody. Me, and I don't want to set a standard that we just allow people to circumvent the rules and the laws, because I believe in following the laws and I believe in not circumventing them. But there's so many, like we've said before, in the historical overlay area, there are so many quirky things in that area anyway. And so I wish we could find a way to make it work for everybody too. I agree with Director Hunt.
And to that point, I don't wish to speak out of turn, but I think you could, there's enough difference between each and every vacate request that we get that I believe you could approve this without setting a precedent. But I believe from a staff standpoint, when we see something come through without all the signatures that we believe are needed, we have to recommend denial to avoid setting a precedent on that receiving end of the application, if that makes sense.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ken.
Kevin, just humor me. I'm going to ask a few questions. And I hope to get to the point here. If we do not pass this, it becomes a dead issue. They can resubmit, correct?
Correct.
If that were to happen, just give me an estimate as the time frame we would be looking at.
Is that 3 months. About 3 months.
3 months? All right, let me ask you this. If, let's just say, somebody from Simmons is watching us tonight, and they say, well, let's sign that tomorrow. Is there a way that we can expedite this to get it done and not wait 3 months? Can it go back to the original request with the added signature and then be expedited?
I don't, I mean, while we're thinking about that, if I could just interject here, but if it fails, it's done. That's right.
And that's why I'm
So-
asking these questions. I have a plan, okay?
Gotcha.
And I think we would need 3 readings of whatever final version we come back with. So it could be possibly, I would defer to Jay, you could either table or pass this first reading tonight with the stipulation that it be updated to the original closure that vacated the full length.
Okay,
And
so
then
if we
you'd start
did
the 3
that
readings after
tonight,
that.
in 2 weeks, we would reconvene, and we could then have the second and third reading at that point.
I believe state statute requires requires all 3 readings to take
Okay,
place
so we
for this
could-
specific type
we
of.
could still do that next meeting. Here's my point, or I guess my question. I know we have a very good working relationship with Simmons. It goes back, we've land swapped, we've done all kinds of good things. Has anybody from the city contacted them to offer the applicants any kind of help to get this done?
We offered contact information, but the city cannot pursue signatures on an applicant's behalf.
We cannot ask them to look at this matter?
Correct. We're not the
You can do an
agents for the
introduction.
applicant.
You can do an
I
introduction.
understand
We can
that.
facilitate a meeting, but we cannot go to them
Okay,
and
that's, I think would be great if we could do that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Christopher
yes.
Paxton, the Director of Community Development. I just wanted to also include that we've given that offer to the applicant surveyor more than one occasion, and they have denied that request from the city to assist them with communications with Simmons.
Well, that's good to know. But I think, I mean, I'm seeing pros and cons on both sides. And I know it's turning into a very emotional subject over a 6-inch by 20-foot piece of property that should not even come into question. So my thinking is if, and I understand this is the first reading, what I would like to see, and I'm not sure how best to go about it, is a little closer working with the applicant to make this meeting with Simmons happen and get their signature. I mean, I don't know what their thought would be. I'm not going to speak for them, but I would just think for them to sign off on that alleyway is not going to hurt them in any way, and that they probably would be very open to discussing that. And before we start arguing and this starts getting thrown around, I'd like to see, at least give that an effort to see if that could happen. So if you'd like me to request a table, I will do that. I don't mind voting for it to pass until the next time, and we see if we can do that. Now, if we have to do all 3 today, did I understand that?
No, I believe
We
it has
just-
to be heard 3 times. You
Oh,
can't
3
combine
times.
readings,
Okay.
I don't believe.
So,
Although I may be
I
thinking
mean,
annexation. but
the other board members can certainly weigh in. My first impression is just to table it, and let's find out, because I just think that would be the best for everybody. If we can, as a city, just kind of set up this meeting. I know we can't interfere and can't push, and that's not what I'm suggesting, but at least if we could get the interested parties together, I think that would be beneficial to everybody. So that would be my first thing, is table this until the next meeting. If that's not going to work, I don't mind voting it to the next meeting, but then you still run the risk of it not passing if nothing more is done. That make sense? So I guess I'll let everybody else talk, and then if that'll give us some direction.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If I may. One of the things that our legal counsel had got, talked to Mr. Caldwell, that's one of the things we were talking about, is trying to table this, because I know they're, trying to expedite it to get this through. We want to do that, but we feel like we can work together. They've done their due diligence, and they brought some good points, and we're willing to work and try to work through this. And it's a process, so I'm just throwing you out there that just a few minutes ago, our legal did talk to Mr. Caldwell that this is something that we're interested to, but again, that's the board's pleasure.
So would you prefer just to be tabled till the next meeting?
That would give us time to work through this to see where, yes, to give you just a direct answer, yes.
Then
But that may be something that, they're not interested in doing. I don't know if that's their call. But again,
I would like to hear from
Caldwell.
Mr. Caldwell, who's here tonight.
I did have some questions.
Reed had something to say, too.
Okay. So first, let's, Reed, I'll get through with all of the directors making your comments, and then, okay, Reed?
I'd like to address two things concerning this. And the first one is that I've had discussion with multiples of staff as well as city administrator. And we've had a lot of conversation. Well, I wasn't here at that time. I don't know what their intent was. We need to see if we can move past that to where we can say, we are Siloam Springs, and if something was done earlier, we get to bear it. If it's good, we can bear that. If it's not been done right, then we get to bear that as well. Another, in essence, just being able to own up to it and say, okay, this is where we are, where we're going to go from here. And I looked up this property and on AR County data, and since 2010, there have been, this has changed hands 5 times. The current gentleman is the 5th owner since 2010. And I know when you purchase property, it goes through the title company, and they do all the work that needs to be done to make sure it's unencumbered, there's no liens, those types of things. But somehow we have we're dropping in our system, and I don't say this because I have the answer. It may be cost prohibitive, but how can this property sell, I guess, 4 times, making it 5 owners since 2010, and nobody notices there's an alley going through the house? So I feel like somewhere we need to see if we can improve this, whether this is from the state or the county or maybe as a city, that when there is property sold, who looks at this to make sure that it's done properly, so that when someone does purchase a property, they can have that quiet enjoyment, so to speak, instead of saying, oh, I've got an alley running through my house. And again, nobody here was on staff at that time, but somehow, some way, that house was built on an alley and it was approved. So I think we need to work from that standpoint that, yes, it was done. I may not have done it, but I'm the representative today. So what can we do as staff to work forward on this? And I want to state, and thank you, Renee, she helped me with this, we need to work with staff. We need to trust our staff, and we have a wonderful staff. So I don't want to sidestep that. I don't want to come in from the back way. But how can we do things to where when a property sells, I mean, this is a very blatant, that somehow it gets through the system, 5 times since 2010. Is there a way we can work through that? And then I have one more question.
We need that answer first, gentlemen.
Again, Chris Paxton, I'm the Director of Community Development. From the city's standpoint, whenever there's transfer of ownership, we're not involved in that, and that's not within any of our jurisdiction. However, when we have land, when we have property boundaries that change, those administrative boundary changes would go through review. That's where we would catch, and in this case did catch, that there was an encroachment into the right-of-way. Again, this was, I think, up to 50, I think it was 50 years ago when this house was built. I think someone had stated at that time, Siloam Springs was a lot different. Staff was a lot smaller 50 years ago.
Yes, and
So
about
it's
a fifth of the size.
I don't even think we had a city planner at that time, so I'm assuming not. But now, when we go through the administrative changes to the land boundaries, that's where the city does have that authority, and we can catch these non-conforming structures and try to right those as those come through. It's not uncommon on, especially in older plats of the original plats of cities, to have structures that are within the alleyways that were never built out. I think most of the time you would typically see a garage structure or some sort of a shed that would be placed in those areas that were never used, maintained privately by the property owner adjacent to those. But until we receive a lot split, a lot combination, or some sort of administrative change to that boundary of that property, we don't even see the property in any sort of a survey.
And thank you. My other question, and I think it would allude to what Mindy was saying, I'd like to hear from the applicant what their intent is. Are they, we're talking about a time of the essence, or as far as getting a signature, can we move forward with a portion of this and get the signature at a later date, or we've got to have something within 2 weeks or everything falls apart? I'd like to hear concerning that.
Okay, so David or Carol, do you all have anything that you want to?
They pretty much asked what I have.
Okay, David? No? And Lisa?
I just want clarification. If we approve this and we go to the second and third reading,
Lisa, can you pull your mic down, please?
we are not setting a standard that's going to affect future alleyway closings, because there is a house and you're saying that each one is unique, right?
I can't speak to, for instance, if we approved this one and denied a similar one later, I can't speak to whether or not that person would attempt to sue the city. I
But
think.
what makes this unique is that there is a house sitting right in the middle of the alley.
Yes.
And can we not, put something in there saying because there's a house sitting in the middle, that we are just moving forward, or no?
I think you could certainly describe why you're voting the way you are, and then that would be entered into the record.
And it would help for future legal? Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mindy?
Okay. So yes, this is a unique situation because of the house, so it kind of keeps it from being a true alleyway. And I think I'm hearing you say probably it would be best or safest for the city, at least, to get that signature. And regardless, with the original proposal, Simmons was the abutting property. And so there is a sense of at least wanting that adjoining property maybe to know what's going on. That's maybe one way to look at it. Okay, I still want to hear from Mr. Caldwell.
And they will have been notified through part of our process. It requires notification of every
Okay, so
owner within 300 feet.
they will know
Yes, but Arkansas, the state law requires consent of any abutting property owner. So that's the distinction between simply notified and
Do they
and
know
signing the
at this
petition.
point that this is being requested, that you are aware of?
They only would have received the letter. So
The letter with this proposal?
yes, yeah, notifying them of the intent of the owner.
And we've not heard anything from a Simmons representative?
No, we have not.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ken.
I too would like to hear from the applicants. I'm not trying to sidestep that in any way, but Alan, so is it your desire then, at this point, after talking with legal, to table this?
Madam Mayor?
Lisa?
When the applicant does speak, I would like to request that he has more than 3 minutes so that we can ask all the
Madam Mayor, I
questions.
did have some things when the other board members are done.
Sure, David. I think everyone, yeah. Let me just ask real quick, Ken, whenever you were discussing earlier, you said that you would make a motion to table. And so I just want to make sure that you're not actually asking for a motion, right? You were just, that was a discussion.
At that time, I mean, I'm going to.
Okay.
Or if somebody else wants to, since we've just been asked to do that. But
Okay.
that was sometimes my thought process. I have to talk to myself
I understand.
out loud.
We just want to make
I
sure.
have discussions, you know?
For our clerk.
No,
that-
yeah, that was the road I was going down. I wasn't at that point, but
Okay.
now I feel the need for it more, so.
Okay, so right now, you do not actually have a motion out there?
No.
Okay, thank you. David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As everyone's been asking questions and talking, I've been reviewing this document that was laid on our desk. Very enlightening. I assumed that this was provided by the applicant to do his property. What's really surprising is to see that our staff have asked him to dedicate 60% of his property for drainage easement. And yet, just north of this, on nearly 16 acres, there's a big yellow block that says, city staff did not require Simmons to dedicate a drainage easement. And their plant is a whole lot bigger than a 1,200 square foot house, and they have a much bigger, almost a full acre of where the creek is. So I just got to say, I am a firm believer in what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and you treat everybody fairly, and you treat everybody the same. The next page I see is something that we dealt with last year, the Burt Collins property that I specifically remember coming to us for a vote. And the easement was for closing a 20-foot wide easement vacation. But then after a certain date, it changed to 15-foot wide, and reducing the amount to vacate took away the requirement for Walmart or Lowe's to sign off. This looks like a very big version of what Mr. Mejia is trying to do, and my question is, how did this happen, Kevin?
So that one specifically between Walmart and Lowe's was different due to the final product. So they came and requested to vacate the full width of the easement to the property line. Staff made the same comment that the abutting property owner would need to sign off on that easement closure. And then they came back with staying off the property line. The difference being that all the existing utilities were in the width that is still there today. And the utility companies signed off stating that they did not need that portion that was abandoned. So there's it's a continuous strip of utility easement that's offset on the property line. It's no longer centered, but it is still usable and accessible.
But why would this suddenly change after you guys had taken it all the way through the process of a 20-foot easement that required signatures?
It changed based off of staff comment. So the 20-foot request was their first submittal, and then staff made the comment that it required the neighboring signatures, and their response was to stay shy of the property line. So again, similar to what we're reviewing
Did staff
tonight.
advise them to do that?
No, staff did not advise them to do that, not to my knowledge.
I don't understand why they would have changed this because of getting 2 signatures from 2 large companies, and why this would not have been applied originally in the first place to then be, within a short time, suddenly it changed. And from this presentation here, of which I encourage every board member to review, it's very enlightening, seems like a grand, giant version of what Mr. Mejia is trying to do. I honestly, truly do not understand the situation or the difficulty or the problem that has come about. Just getting everybody all torn up over something that seems so minor. And I'm going to read right here from the staff memo from Planning Department, from Kevin, to our board. City staff is not recommending approval of the proposal as presented by the applicant. The proposal does not abandon 100% of the alleyway. It appears the applicant does not desire to go through the necessary channels with Simmons Foods to obtain the needed signature on the petition. Therefore, as a workaround, they have elected to retain the right-of-way segment as described above, so the closed right-of-way no longer abuts the Simmons Foods property line, which looks exactly like what happened with Burke Collins. I'll continue. While this may work legally to minimize the owners involved, it represents poor planning practice as it retains an unusable right-of-way remnant that serves no practical use or function. Further down, it says, with the exception of the Community Development Department and City Engineering, all city departments have signed off on the easement vacation, as indicated in the attached memo. So Community Development and City Engineering are the only 2 of all the departments that have not signed off, and they're the ones that are saying we should not approve this. So my question is, your argument against this is poor planning practice. Is that the reason we should shoot this down, is because Mr. Mejia and his surveyor have presented something that in your judgment is poor planning?
The difference between the 2 is the final product. So the process was exactly the same between the Burke Collins development and this right-of-way vacate, where they came all the way to the lot line. Staff made the comment that their current proposal required an additional signature, and then they backed off from the property line. The difference is that the Burke Collins development was still usable. That's still an easement that's plenty wide to use, and it's not isolated to where it can't be accessed. But in this case, with the right-of-way closure, the right-of-way at the very north end cannot be accessed by the public. And that's the distinction between the 2.
It wasn't going to be used by the public, whether it went all the way or whether it was backed off 6 inches. The 6 inches is to keep them from having to go get signature from a property owner. The same reason Burke Collins did Lowe's and Walmart. So my question to you is, in your memo to the city board, you state right here, this may work legally, but it represents poor planning practice. So is your judgment that poor planning practice is the reason why this should not be done?
We're recommending denial because it is in poor planning practice.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I will say, Madam Mayor, I have seen a lot of alley vacations, easement, a lot of these done where there were homes already built over them. And I've been here a long time to see a lot of these things done. I have never seen one that has been so argumentative over something that seems so small and really minor and doesn't really make a lot of sense for anybody to be arguing over. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Alan, anything before we go to the public?
No, Mayor, it's just, there's a lot of time sitting in this seat that things were done before I was sitting in this seat that I'm not saying I agreed with, but again, since I'm in this seat, I want to be consistent and fair. Every day, that's what I tell staff, consistent and fair. If something was done in Lowe's 2 years ago, that was 2 years ago. I can't do anything about it before I sat in the seat on August 8th. But going forward, my recommendation to staff, consistent and fair. And everyone that comes to my office, that's what they're told. Consistent and fair. And that's what I'm trying to do today, is be consistent and fair. I can't do anything about anything that was done a year ago, 2 years ago, 8 months ago. But going forward, so as long as I'm here, consistent and fair. And that's what I want our builders, our surveyors, and everything coming in, knowing that we're being consistent and fair. Since day one I've been here, we've had town hall meetings, we've made great changes. We will continue to look at our ordinances and codes, and we continue to make changes, and that's all we can do is consistent and fair. But it's hard that staff has held things that happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Community development, have a new director, we have new legal. Kevin was in a different role. I'm here. So there's a lot of changes have been made, but again, a lot of times it's brought up, this is what happened a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 8 months ago. So, we're willing to work. I enjoy talking to Mr. Jim, smart man. He's brought up some really good arguments and things that we're looking at trying to improve on. It's something we're a little, I can't even tell you how many hours, I think my entire day was spent on this, and half my week was spent on this. And I agree with Mr. Allen, something this small has taken up this unbelievable amount of hours. And we want to be consistent and fair to the homeowner. So that's just kind of where I am there.
Thank you, sir. So, Kevin, anything else at this point in time?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then I will open the floor to anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak to the board. Please give us your name and address.
Thank you. Jim Caldwell, 609 South Oak Hill. I'm here representing Juan. He brought his daughter here, Wendy. She's 11th grader in Salem High and getting her education in government, so a real blessing. And I'll follow up with Alan said. I agree totally. Alan's done some great work since the town hall meeting. We've got a number of those things changed and moved forward, and it's been a big help. So let me just be real brief and go through those 8 pages, if you don't mind. Again, the first 2 pages just show what we're intending to do there.
Are you talking about this document?
Yes, the document, everybody should have this. They weren't able to, didn't put them on the screen, so you should have the hard copies. Again, this platted alley has never been used as an alley. I think that's obvious to everybody. There's no disagreement on that. I think that's key to the case. The 3rd page is the plat that I presented on behalf of Juan, showing that remaining portion that we saved. And I'll get to that here in a minute, exactly why we did that. I've already talked about the dedicating of the drainage easement. And again, city staff, if there's any interest in this small piece that's not vacated, city staff will have an ability to go to that piece of property. Page 4, again, is the Simmons plat. I was fortunate to work on that project, so I'm very familiar with Simmons Legal. I worked back and forth with them to get the plat done. I didn't need their addresses or anything. But what was striking with that Simmons Alley closing project was they were trying to get this done to get their pet food project completed. It took over 5 weeks to get those signatures through their legal system. And this was something they had a lot of vested interest in as well. So, page 5 and 6, that's the background information. And I agree with Kevin, yeah, every job you look at is unique. We have to look at those. And you're correct. 2309 is a utility easement. The one I'm doing here tonight is an alley easement, and they are different. They have different functions. But my point for bringing that out was exactly that, the motivation for adjusting two companies. So that's why my original application with Juan on January 3rd was to close the whole thing. And I believe today that's still valid without Simmons' signature. It includes the entire alley to be closed. It has Juan and his wife's signature. That's the first one I submitted. I believe that's still valid. And if anything, if we could move forward with that, that would be great. There may be some problems with that. But let me just go on to the final 2 pages. And again, I think that helps summarize our position here. Page 7, item 1, Simmons Food is not a party to this alley closing. I believe that meets state standard statute. I still do. They're off the end. They are not in this subdivision. They have no title interest in the alley. If any portion or even the whole thing's closed, they won't get any of the property that's in the alley. And I also believe there'll be never any material loss to Simmons by this vacate, even if they haven't signed it. I don't believe there's any threat. Again, they've been notified. There's been no response. This is off their radar. Many of you have walked and seen actually where this is down in the floodplain, and it's not an issue. Item 2 there again, 2309, we did a vacate and remained without the neighbors assigning that. And again, I think sound planning practice is to apply it to both parties, Juan being my case. The third thing is a Supreme Court case again, and I was, again, surprised at the beginning of the meeting to hear that my application may be legal, because up until, well, Friday was the first time I was aware that there was a Supreme Court case that may have addressed this. And so I spent the weekend kind of looking at that, trying to understand it, because before I was like David, my understanding was it was just poor planning practice to leave that 6 inches. That's sort of how I was trying to address this tonight. But then the Supreme Court case, and I looked at that, that's page 8, and that's just my assessment as a surveyor. When a surveyor, we do a lot of work with case law because most boundary law is based on cases as well as statutory law, but a lot of case law. And so what surveyors do when we get the case, we plot it out. And so Saturday, I just plotted it out. And that's when I was surprised that the plaintiff in that case was not at the end of the alley. He's abutting on the side. He has a material interest in getting, if it is vacated, he'll get part of that alley. So again, I'm not sure that that's real relevant for our case. And just practically too, from a practical standpoint, the case is a 300-foot long alley that's flat. Barbara and I lived in Fort Smith for a few years way back then and kind of know what downtown looked like, and it's flat. And it could have been used as an alley. It was only 5 years. Staff's already mentioned that. And again, the plaintiff in that case was not in the position that Simmons is in this case. So again, I'd be glad to answer any questions and assure the board that there was never any intent on my part to circumvent the rules of this planning department. I think I did 19 projects for public citizens last year. I've got about 4 underway right now. I'm well aware of what the rules are and try to follow them every time. Megan just approved one on last Monday and got it approved and got it finished. So I'm well aware of those things, and I am very, it was a street closing, and I think Jay hit it right on the head. He did exactly what I would have done, and the surveyor had done the proper platting, and so they're moving forward, and that job has been resolved. So again, in the project I'm working on here, I think there's a way to move forward tonight by approving this. It's interesting in Jay's opinion that by leaving a 6-inch gap, I have essentially closed the whole alley. So part of me says is, we could approve this petition that's before you tonight, and it really is closing the whole alley, practically, from a legal standpoint, based on our opinion. So that would be my first take. I really would not want to have it tabled. It's just more opportunity for more things to continue and continue the last 6 weeks. So I would really encourage the board to approve the request as it is. If there's a way from council that can advise you to tonight approve the way it was originally sent, I have that right here. This is the original one that Juan submitted, he and his wife's signature. I requested to close the whole alley. That's in their file. If there's a way in the wording of this approval tonight to approve that, I would be all for it. Or to approve the second one that we submitted that I also believe is legal. And in either case, I do not believe there's really anything gained by having Simmons involved. Like I said, I know their legal team, and I've worked with them. And this alley, there was never an alley on their side of it. It's a completely different subdivision. So anyway, I'm open to questions, comments that you may have.
And Mayor?
Yeah.
I have two questions. First of all, so the reason you don't want the signature is time? Is that what you just?
It's a principle, because again, I actually think that would set a difficult precedent if we have to get signatures from people outside of the subdivision. I would not want to go down that road in the future. I think it's clear in the law. I think there's documentation. There's other jurisdiction cases that address that specifically talk about you do not need signatures from those people outside your subdivision, and I would not want to go down that road.
So is Simmons in another subdivision? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
They're
So
completely out of, yes. They do, their property line butts the end of the alley, but they are not a part of Rogers subdivision. It was meets and bounds.
So what does our ordinance say regarding, there's a county ordinance is it a county ordinance that says?
No, it was
something
case
about
law,
subdivision?
just the
It's
county case law. right.
Okay. So is there something we should be putting in our ordinance about subdivision line? No?
I don't think so.
No?
Personally,
That would just add another layer of,
I think so. Again, I think we have plenty of
Complication.
regulations and standards to go by. Again, in this case, I think we're,
so I know this is a time thing, and it's been suggested that we table it. And this is really a legal question, I don't even know. Can we close the portion, because Arkansas State Code 14,301 through 306, 301, 301 through 306 states that you can do full or partial, I've read it all 100,000 times, that you can do full or partial. So legally, you are doing partial, and you legally have the right to do that. So what would happen if we partially did it, and to take care and clean up the 6-inch we work with, then the city can work with Simmons to close it, outside of delaying them from doing what they need to do? Can the city step in at that point? Because I get it. I know the city cannot be going to Simmons and asking for, I used to work for a city, so I get it. You're not supposed to put yourself in that position. But at that point, if it's still a right-of-way, or public right-of-way, can the city then take it to Simmons to close off the 6 inches?
And if I might, the city has an independent right to pursue closure of any public right-of-way without having to go through the petition process. And the difficulty in this case has been to decide who is an abutting property owner. And I appreciate the applicant's work in trying to sort through what happened in that old Roberts versus Pace case, which I'd shared previously with some of the board members from 1959. But it's real interesting. Arkansas courts continue to struggle with that issue. And there's a 2000 case that I was just looking at where, again, the court said, well, the important issue, an abutting property owner is not necessarily defined by who touches the property as much for purposes of the case went on to say that that's often a question of fact. So, so if the board is allowed to look at the facts, that's the best answer I can give you. You can look at the facts and make a decision that someone is not adversely affected by a closure because of the particular facts, even if the best general practice may be to require all signatures and to fully close all the way to the end of an alley.
So you're saying, layman's here, we can close to the end as a board because we look at the fact that Simmons is not adversely affected because there's a house through the right-of-way of that property.
I believe you could do that in this case. You could factually do that, although the application that's before the board leaves a small buffer.
What's that mean?
It leaves the 20
Oh,
feet
the 6
wide by
inch.
6 inches
So can
long.
we, but he initially put one January 3rd. Can we not make a decision to revert back to the January 3rd application?
I don't know what's been published. I don't know what's before the board tonight. I thought it was the one that had been pulled back, the 6 inches.
That's correct. Yeah, the current one that was published is the second one that had.
So
been pulled back.
how long would it take if we went back to the first one? You have to republish?
Is that true? Is that right, Jay? Would we have to republish if it
I
is
think
a
so.
different
I've not seen the
application?
publication, but my guess is planning staff will help me out here, but I would guess
Chris?
that would require republication.
Madam Mayor?
Can we, I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to clarify, because Mr. Caldwell has said a couple of times, I'd like to get something approved tonight. I think we're 2 more readings out at least, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But we want to make sure we're.
First reading,
right.
correct?
Yeah.
Right. So what about publication time? If
If we
the board
revert.
was to ask and make a motion to approve this first reading with the original application as a part of that, rather than what you have presented tonight, does that require republication of that original ordinance or request?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. I don't believe it does. This is sort of uncharted territory, so we are all trying to confer, while you guys are talking as well. Because we do have the original petition that goes all the way up to the Simmons line, and we have the original survey, although we would need that slightly redone because I think, Jim, there were some other comments from that original survey that would need to be reflected on the revised third version, but that could all be presented by the second reading of the ordinance at the pleasure of the board. I believe so. I mean, I guess, like I said, we are still conferring on that issue, but it seems like we could probably proceed because we had that original petition, as long as it was considered legal to not include Simmons on that. So.
I appreciate this conversation. I know it's frustrating, but I do appreciate the process because we are learning a lot. And I appreciate Alan and all the changes, and I'm so glad we have Jay here to answer our questions on professional manner. I really appreciate it. And so I don't want staff to think just because I'm asking questions that I'm not saying that you don't know what you're talking about. I'm asking questions because I owe it to the public to know the answers. And so that's why I ask the questions I do.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I did want to make one correction. When I spoke earlier about needing to be heard at 3 separate readings, that was in regards to annexation by election, not right-of-way closure. So I apologize for that. So that you could combine second and third readings at the pleasure of the board.
Could do second and third after revisions, corrections, or if we decide that we want to table it, then we would have 3 more readings to go.
But could
You still feel
combine
that
the
way?
second and third.
But we could combine second and third.
You still feel
Is
it
that
needs
what
to
you're
be
saying?
tabled?
Okay.
At the end of the day, I appreciate Mr. Jim, I really do, and Mr. Holmeyer, the changes that we made and the community working together and the board. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's wrong or right. I want to make sure going forward we're being consistent and fair. And if this is an easier process for the builders and in planning our community develop, I'm all for it. I just want to make sure the city is covered with liability. We're doing things right, and we're not just doing it because.
I appreciate that more than you know, because I've been one of those directors that has been in your office. Can we please be consistent and fair? And you have, and I appreciate that.
And again, he's brought some great, some points that, legal and I are sitting over here sidebarring, and if there's a way, we're trying to figure it out, but I just don't know if we could do it tonight in this venue. I mean, we're going to have to sit down and do some research and talk. Again, it's the pleasure of the board. If they want to vote on this, that's your
Do you need
your
it to be
decision.
tabled? Are you needing it to be tabled, or do you think?
I'm not sure that we can make, again, I don't know which way you're leaning or which way you're voting. I'm hoping that we can work through this. I just think I don't know if we can work through it tonight.
Oh, I don't think we could work through it tonight. We still have 2 more readings, but do you think it should be tabled? As the attorney, do you think it should be tabled?
Well, I think there's an issue, a threshold issue right now, which is if the board moves forward tonight, are we moving forward based on the original petition that went all the way to the property line with Simmons, or on the petition that pulled back 6 inches from the property line? That's the first question. And so that decision has to be made. And it might be that if it was tabled, that could be finalized and the plat can be cleaned up, and that could be presented at the first reading at the next meeting, and then combined for the next 2 readings at the following meeting, and we could be complete.
Madam Mayor?
So, yeah, David?
Before we finish up here, I just wanted to point out a paragraph here that was interesting. On the summary page of this document we had, the big document, regarding the alley closure. Simmons Food, this is page 7. Simmons Foods is not a party to this alley vacate request. They have no title interest in any of the alley in Rogers Addition. If a portion or even if all the alley is closed, fee title to the closed alley goes entirely to Juan Mejia. There will never be any material loss to Simmons by this vacate or any adverse effect to the public interest of our city. So again, I get back to, we're fighting over 6 inches. What are we doing to be fighting over this when I fully grasp where you're coming from, Alan, on the change of personnel? But I appreciated Director Carroll's comment that it doesn't matter who was here or what was going on. We are here now, and we're working with business, and we're working with staff. And some staff was here then, some staff was not. But that's kind of irrelevant when you have something that was already established. And if staff brought this previous 45-foot utility easement, it's like the door was opened. And so I'm just saying, if there's been something that was brought to us and we approved it and we did it based upon staff recommendation, some staff was here at that time, and we have to say, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Again, I go back to, this seems like a very minor thing compared to what we voted on and approved based upon staff's recommendation for adjusting an alley between Lowe's and Walmart. That was a big thing, and we didn't have any problem with it because we did what staff recommended. This is 6 inches, and nobody is going to be affected by leaving it at 6 inches, or going all the way. So again, I just think we're making a mountain out of a molehill.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Lisa, and then I'll come to you, Ken.
So did we not just figure out a solution that we could go ahead and approve it to the second reading, and the second reading will reflect the full alleyway?
I thought so. I think staff is
that is-
working on that now.
That is
Madam
correct.
Mayor,
I
and-
think that we decided that we could ask for a motion to approve this on its first reading,
Yep.
including the original application, which would include the full alleyway. And then if you approve that, then it moves to its second and third readings at our next meetings.
Which would include the full alleyway.
Which would include, if that's what we include in the motion, that we are going back to the original petition, which included the full alleyway clearing. Is that closing? Is that correct, Kevin? The original included the full alleyway closing. Is that correct?
That's correct, and staff was in support of the original proposal.
Okay, okay.
Oh, Madam Mayor, but wasn't that only with Simmons' signature?
Well, originally it was, but I think what you're saying, this is the original application.
Yeah.
If my understanding is correct, Juan and his wife signed it for the full alley closing, and I believe consensus is we can move forward with this.
Without
approval.
Simmons' signature.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Jay.
I think the condition of being able to move forward is that the board needs to recognize that in this case, moving forward would not cause an adverse effect to Simmons.
Okay,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
I'm trying to figure out which motion. But I do move that we go forward
Okay.
with the original, was it the original application?
Petition, yes.
So you want, what you're saying is you want to place this on its first
First
reading.
reading.
Suspending the rules, reading title only, and to use the original petition, which included full alleyway closure and will not be cause an adverse effect to Simmons.
We need to do something to get this going.
Okay?
Second, I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to that effect.
I would like to ask a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Is that what you made reference to, Jay, to go ahead and go with the first tonight? Or did you say,
It-
let's
it is.
table it, clean it up, and then go first,
No, I'm-
second, third?
I have no objection to moving forward on first reading tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So we have everyone understand where we're at and what we're doing. Betsy, I see you have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam
Yes.
Mayor. In the second and third, but now we're going ahead and doing the first one. Are we combining the second and third or just doing one?
That will be totally up to you, but it will be at the next meeting whenever you make that decision.
Okay.
And at that point in time, you will have, I would guess the revised, you'll have the ordinance and the addition of the original application included with staff's recommendation, okay?
Very
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay,
Now I'm on the same page.
okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mindy.
And then your caveat was that it's our job to determine, decide whether we think there's adverse effect on Simmons.
And that is a part of our motion that is,
So there is no adverse
That
effect.
there, right, whether or not there is, we have to decide if we're voting for this, that we've decided there's no adverse effect to Simmons. Okay, so, my vote tonight will be to place it on its first reading.
that's right. That's what we're voting.
Is-
Yes, ma'am.
No, I was going back to the 6 inches, which is
There's two
all in the
more readings
floodplain,
after
so-
this.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Madam Mayor.
You will have the choice at our next meeting whether you want to do both readings, or if you just want to do the second and then wait until the third on the next meeting. That will be up to you at that time. Okay?
Madam
So,
Mayor.
yes. Chris?
Thank you. Chris Paxton, and again, the Community Development Director. I just wanted to remind the applicant that there were a few minor comments that still needed to be addressed from the original survey. If we could get that back before we move forward, then we can include that in the application.
And I believe that that is correct, that I believe Jay and Mr. Caldwell and you all will be working all of that out, if I understand correctly. All
Jim,
right.
Jim, you're aware of what he's talking about?
Your minor changes, notes and stuff, and eliminate the 6-inch thing, sure.
All right, so are we all on the same page?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Trying to rethink, since I was passed over 3 or 4 times, I've got to go back and, okay. So is this, moving forward with the motion that's at hand, we no longer need the Simmons signature, correct?
That is correct.
But that doesn't totally absolve us, does it? Or does it?
Let me answer your question this way. If in the future, we say we're never going to require someone at the end of an alley to sign off on a petition because we're always going to find that it's not an adverse effect, at some point, someone can come in and say, no, that did adversely affect me. I'm going to take you to court, and that's for a court to decide, okay? So this relies on the board making a strong decision that it's not an adverse effect. So this is a particularly unique property, as the board has noted, and I believe the board is safe in making a finding in this case. Recommendation was for that to occur, and then it came back, pulled back 6 inches. My response to staff was, you're still essentially closing the alley, so you should still require Simmons' signature.
But now we do not require their signature.
That's
Only because we're saying in the ordinance that we do not believe there's any adverse
because that's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Before you vote, Renee, would you read it one more time for us?
A motion to place ordinance number 2403 on its first reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only to include the original petition and to include the full alleyway closure and to determine that this does not cause any adverse effect to Simmons.
So there's your motion, and that's what you're voting on.
I will compliment Renee, it was well worded.
Yes. Roll call.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Yes. Whistler.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Alan?
Ordinance number 24-03, an ordinance vacating and abandoning an alleyway at 816 East University Street.
Thank you, sir. So with that, that is the end of our ordinances. That would bring us to our staff report, administrator's report. Alan?
I'd like to report expenditures in excess of $30,000. I have one to report tonight for $39,137.50 for 550 roll carts, 550 roll carts, 300 lids, 200 wheels for solid waste division. Customers whose meters have transitioned to new advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, the meter are eligible for a Quahawk alerting system. The system allows customers to set alerts and make informed decisions about their energy consumption. Customers can sign up for these free service by visiting their website. The Daddy-Daughter Dance, very popular event this year. We had 3 sold-out dances, at least 300 at each event. Just for the board know, renovations, if you've noticed the fence around the courthouse or around court, they started renovations. Chris, that renovation, you tell me 2 to 4 months?
I believe it was closer to the 4 month, but I don't know how long when the official start date was.
Just the boardroom's going to be very busy because they'll be using this as a part-time courthouse when they're having court, so it's going to be really busy. We have a lot going on over here, but I think that's going to really look great, and it's going to be something for the judge in court, something we can be proud of. And just continued prayers. I know we have a lot going on unspoken. I know Miss Lisa, this weekend, her grandmother, a week ago was put in hospice, and you're in our thoughts and prayers, and, you know, I appreciate you. And, you know, we have a lot going on, so just, everyone's in our thoughts and prayers, and that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we will move to the directors. Real quick, I would like to just say a thank you again to Troop 5026 for being here tonight, presenting their project. And to reiterate that the mayor and the board are in full support of this project and what they're doing. Anytime that kids want to make a difference in someone else's lives by sharing kindness with them, I think that says a lot for our future, because these kids are our future. Also, I want to say that Ability Tree, a great organization, they do a great work, and they are going to be, there will be a fundraising at the La Torchia Brick Oven this Thursday from 4 to 9, and 20% of those proceeds go to Ability Tree from that evening. So anyone that can go out there and support them, I'm sure they would very much appreciate that. Lisa, you and your family will be in our prayers. Yeah, absolutely. So before I move on then, Alan, I believe you have something you'd like to add?
Something just came to my mind. I don't remember exactly, just to the board. I actually hit my 6-month time on the 8th of this month. And I remember during my contract, I can't remember if I was supposed to go back and do an evaluation or something like that. I know the board wanted to meet on my vacation week or something like that. So just a reminder, because it's kind of slipped by me. And I'm not sure I want an evaluation yet, but it's out there, so.
We'll be working on that. So with that, David, I'm going to start with you tonight, and we will end with you, Mindy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to thank the Girl Scouts for coming. Anytime we have the youth coming, whether it's Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Eagle Scouts, any of them, I think it is important to learn how government operates, and we've always welcomed them, and I'm glad to see them continuing to come. And it sounds like they came up with a nice project. I hope that they can find a location and that our staff can help them with any suggestions. The accreditation that on our ambulance services that Chief Panetta brought up, and I think that all of our fire department needs to be congratulated and thanked for the work they do, and to be in such select company of having so few fire departments accredited as we were told, it's a pretty big deal. And I appreciate our fire department staff for doing the job they do. I want to address something. A high school classmate of mine was in a head-on with a tree and just about died over the weekend. She's still not out of the woods. And they could not, the EMTs could not alert her family because her phone did not have the in case of emergency. So at least I know with an iPhone, you can mark that any EMT can get into your phone to call family in case you are incapacitated. And I just encourage everyone to look on your iPhone, look up online if you can't determine how to do it. But you know, just like next to my daughter, I have daughter ICE, ICE. In case of emergency, she always gives me a hard time for calling her my ICE daughter. But it's one of those things where in case of emergency, her husband had to call every hospital to try to find her. It was very hard to deal with, especially with her being in a life or death situation. So I just encourage everyone to be sure and put that in their phone. I want to congratulate our local chicken industry, Simmons, long-term, they're now online, but they chose through employee evaluations the best employers across the nation. And 5 of those companies were in Arkansas. And ArcBest was one of them. Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield was one. But Simmons was number 195, which when you look at the other ones in Arkansas, they were pretty close to the top. So I just wanted to congratulate them. That is a huge recognition to be evaluated by your employees on great places to work. And so that's a nice accomplishment and feather in their cap, and I wanted to congratulate them. Lastly, I just want to say that I just want to remind everyone here that we are elected as public servants, staff serve as public servants. Sometimes it seems we get all worked up in our local governmental organization, all of us, that none of us would be here if citizens had not set up a municipality so many years ago, and that was set up to serve them. So we just, always have to, it's just something that can sometimes be forgotten, especially when we're up here for 4 years. You don't automatically always think about that, but we should be always reminded of that. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you. Oh, and Lisa, my prayers for Grandma. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Carol?
Well, I just want to reiterate what David said, because we are here to serve you. That's what we're here for. I hope everybody got to enjoy the great weather today and got out and maybe walked on our trails. I know people are working, so you don't always get to do that during the week. I want to talk about our animal shelter, and it's at 1300 East Ashley. And Siloam Springs does require that we register our dogs. And you need to do that at the animal shelter. You will need to provide the rabies certificate, and there is a fee of $5 for an animal that has been neutered, and $10 if not. To do that, you must show proof of spay or neuter, and citizens with disabilities or over 62 are exempt from fees but are required to register. And the tag must be on the collar of the animal, so that if something does happen, somebody, maybe the dog gets loose and bites somebody, that there is proof that the dog has had their rabies, and you can feel a little bit safer. And I say a prayer for you, Lisa, and your family.
Thank you, Carol. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Carol, I just wanted to tack on with getting the tags and such for the dogs and cats and what have you. That I'm glad there's an age on there that you can qualify, but unfortunately I do qualify.
Me too.
I'm not excited about that, but thank you. I do want to encourage everyone to vote. Please vote. Thank you to the Girl Scouts 5026 for what they did, and it was good to see them come in and speak and have that opportunity to be a part of local government. That was very good. John, thank you for the presentation for the CAS, and that you all show excellence for all of us. The police department, I've heard many good things, and it's good to know that we have excellence in our community. I'm very proud of that. Thank you, staff. I know this is, for me, it's been something. I think I've talked to, about every staff in this room and more, and thank you for listening. And maybe not saying everything that you're thinking, so I appreciate that. And spring has arrived, in my opinion. This is wonderful. But we're getting ready to really spring forth. Dogwood Festival is just around the corner. Things are happening. I'm already excited. I don't even know what's going to go on all out at the AMP, but I'm ready for it. One of the things I did, I went and visited someone today who has stage 4 cancer. And they don't have opportunity to get out a lot. And one of the things I did recommend is when we do have a concert there at the AMP, that we can probably find a place to park close, allow them to get in, and when it's time for them to go, we can help them get off. But enjoy what this community has, even if it may just be 30 minutes of a complete concert, but a little bit of time. But that was a joy to me to be able to do that for someone who may be otherwise homebound for quite a bit, but they maybe have the have that little opportunity of enjoying music and just being around some people. That's a good thing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Reed. And just real quick, Lisa, if I might, before I pass on to you, whenever David was talking about making sure that you have a way for someone to reach you if you've been in an accident so that they can get a hold of you, I have been noticing as I've driven around town lately that we have a lot of houses that don't have house numbers. And I know that it's easy to, like if you paint and you forget to put them back up, or, you know, they rust and they fall off and all of this, but if emergency services is trying to get to you and you don't have a house number on your house, it makes it much harder for them to find you and to get to the right house quickly. And we all know that seconds can mean a difference between life and death for some people in certain situations. So I just encourage our citizens to think about that as you're doing your spring cleaning and doing things, to be aware that it really is important for you to have your number on your house somewhere that they can see it from the road as they're looking for your house if you're needing help. So just a little reminder about that.
On the mailbox too, if they can do that.
If you can put it on your mailbox too, absolutely. The easier you can make it for them to find you, the better it will be whenever you need them. So thank you all for that as citizens, to just make an effort to remind yourselves and your neighbors to do that. Lisa?
Congratulations to the fire department. It's well earned. A couple weeks ago, well, a month ago, we had to call the ambulance, 2 ambulances to my family's house, and not my house, my grandma's, and my mom, the staff, you don't even know what it did for her, the way they were treated. So I really appreciate tonight's conversation. A lot of people think that if you disagree or if you have a confrontation, it has to be negative. And conversations don't always have to be negative. It's trying to find a solution that works for everybody. And this conversation tonight really made a difference for me. With everything I'm going through in my life, and Alan can tell you, I came in crying tonight. And the thing I said to him is, we're making it personal. We're making it personal. And it's not personal. We need to find a solution that works for the best interest of everybody in our community. And that's what conversation does. And so the more we can stay open-minded about it, and the more we can look at it from different perspectives, it really helps us all grow and helps us all serve the citizens better. And so I really, really appreciate tonight's conversation. And it did something for me, and I needed it. And so thank you guys for the conversation. The daddy-daughter dance, you said there was over 900 participants. Staff did an amazing job putting that on, but there was also a lot of volunteers that helped. And I want to say thank you to all those volunteers that went out and helped make that a success, because I've heard nothing but great compliments on it. So thank you for all the people that volunteered and all the staff that put all the effort into that. And I do appreciate staff, and I do appreciate the changes that have happened in our city. I've gotten positive feedback. People say that sometimes the board doesn't get along, but we get along. We care about each other. And if you can't tell that, then you're not seeing it, because when we become grandma, we are happy that someone's grandma. When somebody passes away, they're contacting you and telling you that they care about you. So just because you think there's division, you need to look further. Each one of us care about each other. I don't care what people think on the outside. We care about each other, and we care about this community, or we would not be up here. And so that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Lisa. Betsy?
Now you made me tear up, thanks. First, I wanted to say, totally support what the Girl Scouts want to do, and I don't know any of those girls, but I am so proud of them to step up to the podium and share what they did. It's intimidating for people who are 40 years old to step up to the podium and share, and they just did an awesome job. They have a lot to feel good about. One suggestion, of course, now I'm like, those boxes would be cool, and we need more than one. One suggestion would be the Healing Garden. That's a place people go to who are hurting and in pain, and I think that would be a really nice thing for them. Reed mentioned the amphitheater and parking. I had completely forgotten. There was talk of adding another space, handicap parking space. Did that ever, I'd forgotten about it. Because there isn't much handicap
You're talking about the
parking there.
library and, not the
Yeah,
library.
so by the amphitheater, so people can, all the events that go on in the summertime.
Yes, we're still looking in that. We also,
Okay.
the church right there allows us to park handicap there. We've got an agreement with them.
Okay.
And that's still something we're looking at. Our concern is, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, is we need handicap parking, but at the same, we're so limited in parking right there. If I take up too many spaces,
Right.
we may not have enough. Kevin, can you tell me, I can't remember the handicap, it's 2 or 3, 4 we have over there now, and we don't just have a ton of parking places, but that is
No.
something we're looking at.
I remember it was a citizen who, I think her husband had to have the handicap van, and there weren't spaces for them to be able to attend some of the stuff. But I don't remember where it landed.
That's, excuse me. When visiting that area during normal hours, we've not seen that need. So I would need to follow up with probably Megan and our communications manager, or maybe Parks and Rec, to see if that's a need that they've noticed during events, because that's not something that we've observed as staff.
Okay. I know one person had said they couldn't attend because, yeah.
But some I'll keep looking into.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and the Ability Tree, Thursday night, the fundraiser. The Ability Tree isn't just for children with special needs. There are also for the rest of the community, there are memberships. They have Parents' Night Out, they have crafts, they have awesome gyms. Yeah, it's a really cool place. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to have a child with special needs. And I agree with Lisa. I appreciate the conversation. I know everybody put a lot of work and thought into this, and it's nice to see everybody working together. And I appreciate y'all. I appreciate staff and working for the citizens. And thank you all for being here. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Betsy. Ken?
Well, Lisa, yes, you are in our thoughts and prayers, and always. I am going to be, I don't know if it's pessimistically optimistic or optimistically pessimistic on the weather. I can't share Reed's exuberance just yet, but it is supposed to be nice the rest of this week and most of. Get out and vote if you can, because March 5th is going to be cold and wet. So how about that? So just coming, and as nice as it is now, it scares me what March is going to be. But anyway, please exercise that right, that privilege, and get out and vote. I would say vote early, vote often, but there's something wrong with that, right? Yeah, so that's all I have.
Thank you, Ken. Mindy?
I'm kind of with Ken on the weather. I was going to tell Reed, just because you say it, so it doesn't mean it's so, but we will hope that it's so, that we'll have the good weather here on
Frogs
out.
have spoken.
Okay. A lot of what I was going to say has already been said. You know, thoughts and prayers are with Lisa and her family. Obviously, congratulations to the fire department. I know a little bit about what it takes to go through the accreditation process, both doing what you're supposed to do and then reporting on what you've done. Both are very time consuming. I know that from educational perspective. I was very proud of the Girl Scouts. They did such a good job getting up and speaking, and none of them even sounded nervous. They just, obviously they had their script prepared, but it was so well done, and they were able to present that so well. I think they were just looking for one location. I like the Healing Gardens, but I did also think of nursing homes. Residents in nursing homes would probably love to get that notes of encouragement. If they ever expand, that would be a good place for them to do their notes as well. And like others have said, I too appreciated the discussion we had tonight. And I had talked to a few of the interested parties before, and all had commented, you know, we're still going to be friends no matter what decision is made. No hard feelings, and I really appreciated that going to the discussion too, because these are hard decisions that we have to make. And a lot of people do spend a lot of time and effort on just providing the information. And then we have to take that information and we have to weigh it and we have to make what we feel is the best decision for the city and the citizens and everyone involved. And there are a lot of parties involved in this. So thank you to those who did spend the time with that. And I think that's all I have to say. So I move that we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you all.